We're going to talk about the first interview. There is a video clip of the first interview as an example in the modules. If you'd like to stop the PowerPoint and take a look at that video, that would be great. The 3 tasks of the first interview is to listen and convey an accurate understanding of the client's presenting problems, using empathy, professional understanding of what the client is experiencing and what the client needs, build rapport so the client feels good about the agency and about the services, and to ensure that they will come back again for a second interview. Preparing for the first interview. Well, remember the client's already called in, so you could look at the inquiry form or the new referral form if it is available. If the client had been at the agency in the past, look over those past records. Perhaps there's some previous medical history that you might have access to, so look over that. But keep in mind, the past material was collected by others at a different time period. Things may be different now or may not have been collected accurately before. Look over the interview information to be needed now. In other words, review your forms before the client comes into the room. Make sure your office is a comfortable place and that there's no confidential materials from the previous clients sitting out and about. Go out to the waiting room and meet the client. Be sure to use their name. Give them a handshake or some other greeting in the waiting room. As you're walking back to the office, be sure to introduce yourself, your credentials, and your role within the agency. You are going to explain the agency and the programs or the services that we have. Discuss any payment arrangements through the informed consent process. You're going to discuss confidentiality limitations and have your opener line of how you're going to open the session. And then make mental notes of any initial impressions that you have about your new client. Take care of the required forms first, such as the informed consent and the release of informations, going over the limits of confidentiality. It's very important that the client understands what is confidentiality and what they can expect almost before they say anything to you. Here are some great opening questions. What brings you here today? How can we help you? What can I do for you? Use your listening skills and open-ended questions. You're going to gather information about the client's view of their problem that they're bringing in. How is the presenting problem impacting their life functioning in work, home, school, families, activities of daily living? What would the client like from the agency? Memorize the gist of the questions on the intake screening form. Try to make it a conversation. How will you take notes or remember the key points? It's okay to look over the form during the interview to be sure you get everything down. The client will understand and actually wants you to get down all the information too, so that way they don't need to repeat it. At the first interview, we are not delving into the client's history, nor are we gathering a bunch of information for an assessment or a diagnosis at this point. Remember, the goal in the first interview is 3 parts: for you to listen and accurately convey an understanding of the presenting problem, for you to have a professional understanding of what the client is experiencing and what the client needs, ending with a decision. We can help you with that, or we can't help you with that, but here are some referrals. Build rapport so that the client feels good about the agency and the services and will come back. You are watching during this first interview, observing, listening, and processing what the client is saying. We're looking for the client's strengths and supports, and perhaps weaknesses or gaps in support. Current problems that cause the person to seek help now. And what are some potential future problems? A sense of who the person is. All of this observations during this process, this is information that will go into the progress notes from this individual session. Remember that most clients don't seek counseling on their own, but they are all motivated for something. They may have skewed views of what counseling is really about or how it can help them. Your job in the first interview is to sell the services. How can we help the client? How can we work together? And what will be the results of the client working with us? You are not making promises that you can't keep, however. We can get you affordable housing placement within the next week. That would be an unrealistic promise to that client. Again, it is all right to take notes, even during the session. Note-taking ensures accuracy. It can be on paper, on a computer, or do you have a good enough memory and time right after the session to document what happened during the first interview? A first interview is usually about 45 minutes. And remember, how are you going to maintain really good eye contact, open body position, leaning in, and relaxed body posture at the same time that you're trying to make notes and listen and observe and remember? In the first interview, stick to open-ended questions to gather information about the issues. You are not giving advice, and you are not trying to solve the problem, and you are not coming up with treatment goals at this point. But you are letting the client explain their situation or problem, listening, and then giving them hope. Sometimes people just need someone to listen and just to hear themselves say the words out loud with you reflecting back. So, for example, tell me more. Describe what happened a little more. What happened next? What did that mean to you? Asking lots of open-ended questions about the client's situation. It is most important to understand why the person is here at counseling now. Usually a situation has been building up or going on for quite a while. So why did they decide to call now? To what extent has the problem interfered with relationships or with functioning? For example, you can ask, what have you noticed about how this problem has impacted your life or your relationships? Then also ask about their support system. How do you take care of yourself? Who is there to help you with these problems? Can you think of anyone else who you may be able to talk to? You are getting an idea of the person's support system. How can we help you? What are you hoping that we can help you with? Explore different possibilities for treatment or service options. Your job here is to provide hope that someone or our agency can help them. Again, don't make promises or grandiose gesture. The client already understands that things will take time. They just want someone to work with them and for things to be better eventually. It's okay to be directive and say, for example, here's what I can do, blah, 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 and here's what you will need to do, blah, blah, blah. It's okay to get a commitment. So again, saying, can you or will you come to your appointments so we can make some consistent progress in getting to the solution? Get that commitment from the client that they will come in again and keep their appointments and do their homework between the sessions. A very important skill is to summarize, especially at the end of the first interview. So for example, here's what you described to me today. Blah, 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 blah. And here's what we're going to do about it in the future. Blah, 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 blah. Or another way, we agreed that we are going to work together. Describe the steps, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So use your summarizing skill, especially at the end of the first interview. The client wants to know that you have heard them and understand them, and you have a direction, and you're willing to help them and work with them. At the end of the session, you're going to wrap up and finish strong. Describe what will happen next, especially when the next appointment is. So again, something like, I'd like to see you weekly, John, because I think by working together weekly, we can get to a quick solution to your concerns. You might assign any homework or anything that they may need to do before the next session. Set an example of timeliness from the very first interview. Start on time and finish on time. Remember, you are in control of the timing of the sessions. You may need to be assertive. For example, saying, that's all we have time for today. Here's your homework. Here's what's going to happen next. Remember, I'll see you again next week. If you have concerns about your client either hurting themselves or someone else, address this early in your session and don't wait during the session. Remember, you are ethically and legally obligated to not let the client leave the session if you have any further doubts about safety. So address it early in the session. Keep confidentiality and present a good image even on the way out of the session, too. Close your office door as you walk out of your office. Walk the client out to the front door or the front reception area to schedule another appointment. Be sure the client has that next appointment prior to leaving. The normal first interview is about 45 minutes. So, in your video submission, you are just presenting a snippet of the first interview. I want to see the following in your snippet of not less than 5 minutes and not more than 10 minutes. I want to see your coverage of the therapeutic contract, including your description of confidentiality and its exceptions. I want to see your discussion of the services that you will offer and the way that you will work with clients here at Wildwood Case Management Unit. I want to hear your discussion of the pros and cons of counseling and case management. Summarize the client's rights section of the therapeutic contract. Don't read it word for word, summarize it. Set the fee, any fee will do, and have the client sign the therapeutic contract. In your 5 to 10 minutes, I also want to see your opener question and demonstrate some other open-ended questions and your listening skills. Then stop, skip, go forward to the ending of the session. Just pretend you're going through the session, and at the end, I want to see your demonstration of your summary of the first interview. And I want to hear you describe the next steps for your client. In review, the first interview is about obtaining some basic information about the presenting problem. You're getting to know your client. Build a good professional working relationship, and your goal is to get the client to come back. Provide that hope and motivation for the client by expressing your willingness to work together. In addition, know your paperwork. Don't be reading paperwork. Don't be reading questions. Be clear on how you're going to record information during your session. And again, you are the one asking good open-ended questions. Find some common ground with the client. Your first impressions are important, and I'll be looking at your video for visual images, your setting of your office and environment, what's in the background of your video, the dress of the case manager and perhaps other staff, body language and eye contact. I'll be looking for that. Have a friendly look on your face and make good eye contact with your client. Your next steps for this week is to complete the required form, which is the therapeutic contract, also known as the informed consent form, and submit that through the module online. And then you're going to work on completing your video number 1 interview of a first session. Remember, the video number 1 can only be a maximum of 7 minutes, otherwise you're going to have problems uploading the video. So between 5 and 7 minutes, complete your video and upload it by the deadline.